In 1959, deep in the frozen Ural mountains of Soviet Russia, 9 experienced hikers set out on an expedition, only to vanish under chilling and mysterious circumstances. Weeks later, their bodies were discovered scattered across the snow, some half-dressed, others with crushed bones and missing eyes. The tent had been ripped open from the inside. No one knows why they fled into the freezing night. Was it an avalanche, secret military tests, or something far more sinister? This is the haunting mystery of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Today, we will talk about the Dyatlov Pass Incident. 9 explorers mysteriously died. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. The formation of the group and their ambitions. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women, all of whom were skilled in mountaineering and skiing. They included Igor Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, Yuri Doroshenko, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, Rustem Slobodin, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Yuri Yudin. Yudin was the only member who survived, as he turned back early in the trip due to illness, a twist of fate that saved his life. The goal of the expedition was to reach Otorten, a mountain 10 kilometers away from where the incident would occur. The journey was classified as a Category 3 expedition, the most difficult level of hiking under Soviet rules. The final days and sudden silence. The group began their trek on January 27th, 1959, from Vizhai, the last inhabited settlement before the wilderness. On January 31st, they began to ascend toward the pass, setting up a base camp in a forested valley. By February 1st, they had moved higher and pitched their tent on the eastern slopes of Kolatsiakol, likely due to worsening weather and low visibility that forced them off course. Dyatlov had promised to send a telegram upon their return by February 12th. When no word came and days passed, families became worried, prompting a search party to be launched on February 20th. Discovery of the campsite and first clues. On February 26th, a rescue team discovered the group's abandoned tent. What they found defied logic. The tent had been slashed open from the inside, and it appeared that the hikers had fled barefoot or with only socks into the deep snow in sub-zero temperatures. The first 2 bodies, Yuri Doroshenko and Georgy Krivonichenko, were found near a cedar tree at the edge of the forest, both dressed only in underwear. Their hands were burned, and remnants of a small fire lay nearby. Between the forest and the tent, searchers found Dyatlov, Kolmogorova, and Slobodin, all facing back toward the tent, as if trying to return. More bodies, deeper mysteries. 2 months later, the remaining 4 hikers were found deeper in the woods under 4 meters of snow, inside a ravine. These included Zolotaryov, Dubinina, Kolevatov, and Thibault-Brignol. Unlike the others, these bodies showed severe trauma. Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her face. Thibault-Brignol had a crushed skull, and Zolotaryov and Dubinina both had multiple fractured ribs. The damage was so intense, it was likened to a car crash, yet their bodies bore no external wounds. Even more puzzling, traces of radiation were found on some of their clothing, adding to the already growing list of bizarre anomalies. Initial investigation and Soviet silence. Soviet authorities conducted an official investigation, concluding that a compelling natural force had caused the deaths. The case was hastily closed in May 1959, and all documents were classified. This vague explanation did little to satisfy the public or the victims' families, who demanded answers. Rumors began to swirl. Some speculated about military involvement, others about indigenous Mansi tribes, or even extraterrestrial activity. The truth, buried under layers of secrecy and missing evidence, remained elusive. Theories, from avalanches to the paranormal. Over the decades, dozens of theories have emerged to explain what happened that night. One of the most persistent is the avalanche theory, that a sudden snowslide forced the hikers to flee the tent in panic, resulting in exposure and fatal injuries. However, critics point out the lack of typical avalanche indicators, such as displaced snow or damage to the tent site. Another theory suggests katabatic winds, sudden and violent gusts that could have driven the group to escape their shelter in fear. Other hypotheses include secret military tests, infrasound-induced panic, or even a Yeti attack spurred by alleged blurry photos found on a camera in the camp. The surviving member and his perspective. Yuri Yudin, the lone survivor, spent his life grappling with survivor's guilt and unresolved questions. Before his death in 2013, he publicly stated his belief that the Soviet military was involved, possibly testing secret weapons in the area. He noted that some items found at the site, such as pieces of clothing not belonging to the group and the presence of radioactive contamination, raised suspicions. Yudin also criticized the inconsistency and lack of transparency in the original investigation. Recent investigations and renewed interest. In 2019, Russian authorities reopened the case, citing pressure from the public and relatives of the deceased. By 2020, they concluded, once again, that an avalanche was the most probable cause of the tragedy. Yet this conclusion failed to answer many lingering questions, especially about the traumatic injuries, missing body parts, and signs of radioactive contamination. Independent researchers and investigative journalists have continued to study the case, using modern technology such as computer modeling and satellite imagery. In 2021, a team of scientists published a paper suggesting a slab avalanche, a rare and localized form of snow displacement, might have been responsible. Still, many argue that this does not fully explain the state of the bodies or the behavior of the hikers. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up. Leave a comment and click the button to subscribe.